Mm. Hello, Nick. How are you doing?
Hello, Simon. How are you, my friend? It is.
Very well. I must learn to speak when the microphone's on.
It's always amazing to see you. It's really weird. It's like ever since. I mean, I remember watching some of your really early videos well before any of this started. Some of your disclosure type videos, and I don't know. I've always felt right at home. I've always felt, even before we met,
Yeah.
something strange. I've always felt some sort of a family camaraderie. And when we talk, it just feels really easy and comfortable. So
You're
it's good
talking
to see
about,
you.
yeah, you're talking about a previous life experience. Well, you're on the right path because I'm doing I'm speaking at Kerry Cassidy's conference. She's coming to London on the 1st of September. And I decided that instead of talking about the RV or anything boring, I would go back to my roots, is exactly what you're saying. So my talk is something along the lines of flying saucers, are they Nazi tech or something else? So that's where we all started for me back in 2010. So yeah, you're right. I'm
Wow,
going back to do that.
dude, that will be amazing. I think, what'd you say? It's in about a month or something like that.
1st of September, yeah, in United Kingdom, in Great Britain, in London. Kerry Cassidy.
Oh,
I've
that's
always,
too soon.
well, I've
I don't
always
think
done
I'm gonna.
Kerry.
I, I would love to get there, but that's too soon. I can't get
Don't
there
worry,
that
don't worry.
soon.
There'll be lots of other opportunities in the future, I'm sure. I really am.
Yeah, I if I came, I would want backstage passes. With a lanyard. I'd go back there. We'd hang out, eat M&Ms together. It'd be fun.
You think you're going to eat M&Ms in the United Kingdom, do you? You'll never find them.
Well, the old story, how Van Halen they
Yes.
used to pay the roadies to remove the
Yeah.
brown M&Ms,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
if they missed a single brown M&M, they'd fire them. That's what
Yeah.
we would do.
That's brilliant. Love to hear it. No,
So anyway,
you can get, can get. I promise you, you can. Yes.
so right to the show. Enough of the pleasantries, right? I watched, and I would imagine a lot of people watching this also saw the show you did with Ishmael and my beautiful Laura. Laura's a great friend.
Good.
She is an amazing soul. That individual. She has struggled much. A lot has been thrown at her in her life, and she has managed to ward it off and come out on top, and that's been great. But anyway, great shows. You and Ishmael did a fantastic job with more of an ancient
Mm.
cosmic history.
Yes.
A lot of information. My goodness, it was just. I mean, things were flying a million miles an hour. The guy's got a ton of intricate knowledge. That's what's interesting about what you guys were speaking of, was some of the deep, intricate, detailed information that took place so long ago. I thought that was pretty unique.
I didn't realize he'd written a book, and I knew nothing about him except that he'd done an interview. He'd interviewed Kerry Cassidy, and someone, it was Kerry that wrote, I think, said your name's come up. So I thought, I can't have people talking about me behind my back. So I wrote to him and said, how about you interview me? So that's how it came about. I didn't know anything about the man at all. But it was good. I enjoyed it. Um, he didn't have anything that was crazy off the wall in terms of, things that totally are wrong. We all disagree on certain points. And I thought he was a very committed researcher, actually. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I have a interesting story that I'm going to tell you. Not on this video. I think
Sure.
maybe I'm going to save it for Alex, because I think Alex and you would be interested in it, in regards to Ishmael, and in regards to 107. Nothing bad at all, just very interesting. So we'll talk about that later. And Laura, you guys talked about a cornucopia of different events, situations, lots and lots of things that were taking place in the present. I thought that was a fantastic show. So I'm going to try to tiptoe around things to not repeat what you guys recently talked about. We'll leave the cosmic history alone, but I did want to talk about a little cosmic, and I realize, Simon, that the white hats are kind of directing you to stay in the geopolitical, at least for the time being. I get it, but I wouldn't mind touching about some salt and pepper, how the recent history. Not too many people talk about the recent history of what's been taking place over the last 10 years, both off planet and underground. I've also wanted to ask you, in regards to that, how the white hats managed to keep the battles off of the surface for the most part. Much has gone on in orbit, much has gone on subterraneanly. And I was wondering, was there some sort of an agreement between the sides? And I wanted to talk a little bit about how the last 10 years have looked, so people can you hear me?
Yeah, go on. I'm listening to you. Go on.
Okay. So I've just got
the dog here.
So people can understand where we really are. And in order to understand where we really are, they have to also have a real good picture of the things that we've accomplished in this contest, so to speak. I know it's been going on considerably longer than a decade, but I want to keep things relatively current because it tends to be more important to the viewer. It's interesting what went on 500,000, a million years ago, but most people have a difficult time assimilating that into their day-to-day activity.
Sure. Right. There we go then. So I'll go back. I won't go back 10 years. I'll go to 2012 because that was the most important energetic movement that we've been through for a very long time. So the good guys have had maybe these last 12 years, what have you, planned for the last 25 years. So there wasn't an agreement, to your main question. It's that nobody will benefit from a public display of power or what have you. So the good guys don't want it, the bad guys don't want it. The bad guys have spent all their life hiding things from the people of this planet. Now, why would they change now? So it was basically like two people playing chess, but not in the room with everyone else. They took the chessboard out, went, sat in the back room and played. That's exactly what's happened here. But your question is more detailed.
It is.
Or at least the answer requires more detail. One of the things that I think that even some of the most gifted researchers either haven't stumbled upon or choose not to talk about it because it would break the accepted narrative. For instance, people like Henry Kissinger, there is a general consensus that people like Henry Kissinger and Rockefeller are very bad. But it's not understood that those people were on a contractual basis working for the White House, particularly to counter the alien agenda. But it's not in the just to go out and say Henry Kissinger was a good guy isn't going to do anyone's ratings any good whatsoever. So even for researchers who have understood that there was a double action to many of these people, they're not going to talk about it. But what's occurred over the recent history, primarily in the first 3 years of Trump's official office, and maybe 5-6 years prior to that, was a concerted effort to take the war to the off-planet entities. So I'm not talking about the deep state per se. I'm not talking about the evil space program. I'm literally talking about a whole range of non-human entities that were holed up either under the ocean or under the earth in this planet. And that is the war that's been taking place. And it's taken this long because the humans have a very small force, simply because if you're a robot, you can go and do 20 missions and it doesn't have any effect on you at all. But if you're a God-fearing person, you do one mission and you're going to need a lot of downtime to put right what you've witnessed. So the good guys always knew this would be a long time. The other thing, to go right back to Reagan, President Reagan was much more of a good guy than people realize. That's a really important point to make. They really don't get it that he was a really, really, really good guy. And the advancement in technologies that were put into practice physically during his presidentship, my mother, through her translation work, had been doing in the mid 1970s. So the work that the scientists were doing in the early to mid 70s translated by the time that Reagan was in office, so that's the early 80s into the mid 80s, into real hardware that could work. So they went from the theory in the early 70s to the mid 80s of actually having it. And the moment that was possible in the mid 80s, then the human race and the white hats were in a position to take on all comers, not equally, but you could get the lucky punch in. And that's where a number of American presidents since Eisenhower, probably Truman, but definitely since Eisenhower, said, if we can just hold our own, then we'll go for it. But until we can hold our own, we're going to be kicked about. We just got to take that. And those presidents bought the time so that under Reagan's presidentship, they had what they needed. So what's been happening over the last few years is that those technologies have been used against the oppressor under the oceans and under the land and in space. And we've wrested control from the bad guys. And that's where we are.
I know people would be interested to sort of get an idea and ascertain the scene, so if you will. You know, a lot of people talk about the white hats. Most people don't know who the white hats are. They don't know what the white hats are comprised of. You know, the Earth Alliance, the Alliance, we're talking about groups of humans in the form of our military, our solar warden, a group that I believe is called Radiant Guardian, the secret space program entities that have been recalibrated towards good, and then off-world entities that are not human in our sense, such as different factions, the Galactic Federation, Federation of Planets, the Andromedan Council of Five, and others. I wondered if you could sort of encapsulate who the white hats, when we talk about white hats, really are.
I'll do my best. Well, there are an awful lot of commentators out there that, in my opinion, don't actually have a grasp on reality. If we accept there are good non-humans, let's accept that. And I think everyone listening to this will be able to do that. the jump that's made about these good non-humans doing this and doing that and fighting this war and fighting that war is not accurate. Because if you are a good, what you do is you seek to empower the people that you are supposed to be helping. You don't be mum and dad to them because they'll never grow up. And so what's been happening is it's been a steady transfer of two things. One is technology, and the other is the responsibility to use that technology and to stay to the directives that were originally agreed. Now, there have been a number of battles which have been witnessed by people that have had non-human good guy craft, but that has been where no other solution was available. So the humans, and I'm talking about the United States naval intelligence, is the factor on the ground that runs everything, with the United States Air Force, and an arm of that is the Space Force, the astronaut side, that running that side of it. So it is still, to my knowledge, the United States Naval Intel that has the lion's share of the command and control of the operations within this. And one of the problems was getting the Army and the Air Force to work together. Everybody is their own separate group. But that's one of the things Trump did. That was one of the deals, because they would all form one group. And some of the problems in the Pentagon were not a problem in accepting Trump as the commander-in-chief. This is misrepresented. It was some of those departments playing second fiddle to someone else. If you've never been in the Pentagon, you would be forgiven for thinking it is one large football field with one team doing everything. It is not. It is a hugely compartmentalized group, not just one group against another, as it were, but within that group. And everyone's trying to outdo each other. And this was working to the detriment of the people of the United States. So the agreement was that they would all put aside their issues and be that one team. And you really, that's what swung it, because it meant that they were sharing their technology. Because if the Air Force is holding a downed spacecraft in one place and the Navy's got one in another, but the two sides aren't talking officially, you're not doing the best. So what happened is they came together and they shared that intel. And that's what's allowed the white hats to do this. So it is human white hats who are calling the shots, because the off-planet white hats have no intention of being a policeman in the sense that they would take over. However, they do help. But they're not. People are painting them as the great savior. That's not how they want to be viewed.
Yeah. I mean, anyone in the cosmic spiritual communities should know that. I don't know if many sort of kind of glamorize their piece. I don't know. I'm not in their heads, but that is something that one learns early on in regards to the spirituality and the progression in this ascension path. So, it was always a little bit to my understanding that the off-worlders helped us with the off-world enemy, and the humans took care of the bad humans. I mean, is that a reasonable rule of thumb to go by?
No, you are right, except when the bad humans had technology that they had been given by the bad side off planet. Therefore, the good side had to balance it. So there have been a number of instances where the bad guys have held presidents to ransom or prime ministers to ransom because they had gifted technology. And so what the good non-humans have done is to balance those scales and also to neutralize it. And that is why over the last 4 or 5 years, the bad guys have been reduced to a very primitive mode of operation, trying to detonate dirty nuclear suitcase bombs, which were something like 20 years old, because they no longer had access. You know, the deep state now is only capable of bombs, lone shooters, group shooters. That's the level to which they're reduced to now, because their access to anything greater than that has been completely cut off.
There was something that we briefed, you touched on a couple shows ago, and I have to revisit it, Simon. You know, this topic is fascinating to me as others. You know, it may not directly decide whether or not we're going to win the war, but I know there's a lot of people interested. You mentioned in the tunnels at one time, you mentioned that we utilized the dogman canine type humanoid creatures to assist
the Navy
to assist in neutralizing some reptilians based on their abilities with these creatures. I wondered if maybe you could expand, because I have something behind there I want to ask you about.
The dogmen, as they're called, that's not their real name, but that's the name they're called, are perhaps some of the most vicious non-human life forms you'll come across. And for some reason, they seem to excel at using swords. And it's not uncommon for them to hold 2 swords and fight with 2 swords, although obviously you're not going to do too well against an energy weapon. But the reality is that group has had a long association with the United States Navy. They, like many groups, decided to make a pact with this group, and they hate that group. And if you're fighting in a confined area where light is limited, humans' enhancement with technology can only go so far, because most humans don't have telepathy. They don't have, and if you're fighting an enemy that has telepathy, you're in trouble. And so often what humans would have to wear is a hat, which prevents the enemy from reading their minds, because otherwise they'll know where you are. So in a situation like that, you're better off using your, I don't like the word mercenaries, but you're better off using something that's got a better chance. But very few would want to fight the reptilians. Most of these beneficial aliens will fight the greys. They don't mind fighting the greys, but very few and far between against the reptilians, because they are a very difficult adversary. And Alex Collier will confirm that when we do our roundtable.
Absolutely extraordinary. I need to tell you a little bit of information that I sort of ascertained and have been working on for a while, because it's sort of a side interest to me. You know, I don't really spend a lot of time with cryptozoology, but it's a human interest I've had since I was a kid. There was a whistleblower, and when I say there was, because I don't know of his whereabouts, there was a whistleblower named Victor Johnson. A lot of this information I received from one specific gentleman, one specific channel, because this Victor Johnson was given permission to speak to one channel. He spent 2 years researching which channel to whistleblow, and he did so for almost 2 years. He was a brigadier general, was his rank, and I'll be damned if I can't remember if it was Army. I think Army. He was also a member of a dark project op for the CIA. I actually got information to verify. I got his email address that was something at caa.gov, and it was accurate. So long story short, this gentleman told about 1.5 years worth of stories in regards to these creatures, in regards to him being in charge of a breeding facility, a breeding program outside of Langley. The breeding facility has been in progress since 1957. It was opened with his father. His father served until 1985, whereas Victor took over. And they breed werewolves, dogmen. They get them from the wild. They breed them male, female, breed them from the young, from the youth, full on. Thousands and thousands and thousands of these creatures. He was in charge of the facility, and he was also in charge of teams of operations that would have to hunt them down and dispatch them when they went rogue. Many of these creatures, after trained, were sent to the national parks. That's where they live, in cave systems, and they can be summoned when needed. There's 1,000 bits of minutia information I could talk about, but what I wanted to try to understand, and what I wanted your help understanding, is who and how these people were in charge. So all these years, I mean, they used these creatures in Vietnam as tunnel rats. They used them throughout history in different battles, but kept it extraordinarily secret, compartmentalized. Anyway, the question comes here. About 1 year ago, this entire operation was disbanded.
Closed down.
Victor was screwed. They immediately removed him from his position. They yanked him from being a general. They took his bonuses. They took everything, and they sent him on his way. And then, not too far later, they sent werewolves and dogmen after him to kill him. He survived the first wave, and I don't know of his situation as of yet. I don't know if they got him. I don't know if he's still hiding. What the hell is going on? And was it an operation that the black hats solely took, and the white hats took over and euthanized a great number? They tried recalling these huge groups of dogmen all around the country. Some came, most didn't. The ones that came were euthanized. The ones that were still in Langley underground were euthanized. Victor had a few male breeders that he's been working with since 85, 50, 60-year-old creatures that he's become extremely friendly with, attached to, that they killed. A few of the videos, he was in tears. Well, they didn't show his face, but because of the losses that he's taken. Is there any way you can try to untangle this situation and what might have happened?
The piece that's missing from is that what you've not been told is that is not the same creatures that I'm referring to. What you're referring to is artificially engineered creatures using the DNA from the original dogmen. So these are not the dog. These are artificially, genetically created entities using that DNA. There is no way a white hat operation would turn on any loyal serving officer unless that officer betrayed the national security of the United States of America. Now, let's say that this guy, this general you're talking about, did not betray the national security of the United States of America, then we are left with one option, which is it's a black hat operation. White hats do not leave murderous creatures in national parks for mums and their children to be attacked, to be put it down to Yogi Bear. That ain't going to happen. So the reality is that that is a black hat operation, probably back in the 50s, without the knowledge of the President of the United States, but already with a knowledge of some deep, dark group within the industrial military complex. So the entities that I refer to are not genetically engineered, but you're referring to that. The numbers you're talking about, for a start, preclude this group. The dog group is very small, because sensible generals don't bring hundreds and hundreds of associates on board who could turn against you at a moment's notice. You just don't do that. You never exceed 10%. So if you think about Area 51, you would never exceed, you would always have a 90% human ratio to a 10% alien ratio. And in some cases, it would be even less than that, 5%, 3%, 2%. Because you cannot afford a superior intellect or physicality to dominate you. So that's my answer to what you said.
Yeah, there's no doubt that I believe it was always a black hat operation. It was a dark CIA project. And, he goes into, like I said, there was dozens and dozens and dozens of hour-long dissertations that I followed over time, as well as speaking to the individual who owns the channel. I was never able to ascertain an interview. I tried. It was not granted.
It's not surprising, is it really? It's not surprising. It's not gonna do that.
But I know when you listen to an individual for a very long period of time, you know whether or not he's telling the truth to the best of his ability.
Sure.
And I believe he was a good man. I believe it 100%. Some of the stories he tells, and he had no idea.
I was going to say, Nick, what has happened in the past is that the lead, the commanding officer, believes that what he's doing is the right for America, and it's only when the truth hits them, they realize they've been duped, they've been used. It's that causes the mental breakdown, rather than anything else.
Yeah, so it's extraordinary. I mean, he goes into great detail at any given time in interviews. He had computers, they had systems where he could tell you in any county, in any place in the United States,
how many there were.
Exactly how many there were. Exactly.
But that's the same with the greys. Each of the greys that's under contract is chipped, and therefore, be careful what I say here now. The operators know exactly where, at what level they're at in terms of the facilities. It's the ones that are not part of that contract that are not checked. So yeah, that what you've told me validates for me what he's telling you, because if you weren't in this game, you wouldn't know that. And so, yeah, he's obviously telling the truth.
It's just extraordinary. I mean, and I think, what his job was is twofold. His job was internal, to assist in the actual breeding operations, where he would go into great detail about the young and how they're birthed and what they're like.
Nick, here's the problem. Nick, here's the problem. What's happened? He's got too close to it. He's become friendly with it. He's taken it on as his project. He's got to know them. It's become all encompassing for him. He's forgotten that he's an officer in the military. And when that's taken away from him, it's like his heart's been taken away. And the difficulty was that because it was a black hat operation, they're left in there too long. And what the white hats do is they rotate officers. They don't allow them to stay in those same programs for too long, unless you're the desk job. You know, so if you're the Kissinger or whoever, you're in the desk job for 30, 40 years, that doesn't matter. But the guys on the ground, and he was he a four, did you say he was a 4-star general?
Brigadier General. I think it's 3.
Right, 3. Right. So I would question what the hell he was doing being so involved at that level, because my experience of 2-star generals and up is that they usually tell someone else to do the job for them. They do not get their hands dirty. And so it tells me it was a black hat operation because they did not have the resources of other manpower around him as the white hats would have. There wasn't a proper command and control structure. They couldn't go to the rest of the units and rotate. So, and they just couldn't trust anybody, and they got him where they wanted. So I think what you've described to me is a very well-meaning, lovely man who was terribly naive and has been tricked. That's what it comes across as.
I believe that. I believe that, and obviously he wasn't always a general. When a lot of the activity happened, with the breeding and the youths and all of that over the 40 years that he was involved. But
yes,
most of the stories are of the hunts, of the kills that he was forced to do, and many of the kills he was happy to do. Some of them not so much.
Yeah, Nick, not such a nice man if he was doing that.
If he was doing which?
If he was involved in the hunts and the killings, then you would have to say, I would have to say, what was controlling him to be involved in that program without him questioning anything. You cannot operate in a dark side operation without stumbling upon or questioning some things that don't seem right, unless they control your mind. If they mind control somebody, then that person really doesn't see it. Very like Alice in Wonderland. But if you have your own sovereignty, it wouldn't take you very long to realize that this was not a good operation. So let's move on from this, because there's too much dark killing and nastiness for my liking. Can we have another question? Let's do something different.
Absolutely. I appreciate that information, though. Very much so. Yeah, let's move to something that's completely different. Bloodlines. Baron Trump, Donald Trump. I was curious if you had some information about who Baron Trump really is, and what. I've never liked bloodlines because they're always, talking about the dark side and the royals, but obviously if there's dark bloodlines, there's good bloodlines. So I wondered if you could help us a little bit with that topic.
No, I won't be discussing anything about the Trumps at all. What you're saying is absolutely accurate. There are characters in history, go back 500 years, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, who have a good decision. They're a good person, and they might have offspring. Some of them might go bad, but you go back to the originator. If the originator was good, and maybe there have been 500 children over the time, it doesn't matter if someone had been bad, because the originator was good. And if in this timeline you decide to be a good person, and you trace your bloodline back to the originator, who was also a good person, you can legitimately claim to be a good person. Where we have a problem is where people do pacts with devils, etc., etc. But in terms of the Trumps, like many people hidden in plain sight, they are more than what they appear, and only a handful of people and I mean that literally, it's one of the guarded secrets, will know right across the planet, a whole range of people, the soul in their body. That soul has a direct connection back to the originator. So you have an individual who has a bloodline, which means that the blood in their veins, his or her veins, their organic body can trace a line back to another organic body, but the soul that inhabits that recent body, today's body, could be the same soul that was in the original body 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, or it could be from another line, which is good. So this is part of the secret, that there are physical people on the planet today, both good and bad, that contain the spiritual energy that can be traced back to different bloodlines. And that is a incredibly guarded secret.
Is it accurate that the majority of them, or us, or whoever, simply don't know that at the present, and maybe one day they will?
No, because this is the time of activation. If a person doesn't know who they are now, it's too bloody late, because we've been in this war for a few years now, and the good guys will know everybody, like the bad guys know everybody. And what the good guys do is they protect those people who are not yet ready to take their place in the wider world. But they will know who they are, they know their history, but they are being protected until such time as it's a more secure environment. Then those individuals can come out into the wider world and play whatever role for good that they have. But people will already know, to some extent, don't have to have 100% recall, but they will already know who they are, and what their purpose is on this planet.
Fair enough. Let's go to today. Let's go to current. It's always been a bit of a thorn in my side, the battle between the movie and reality. The need, and I understand the need to play the movie. I understand the importance of following along the movie, and also many commentators, I would imagine their job is just that, to take along the people, to follow step by step. These are the things that are going on. But in reality, those are the things that went on in the past. But it seems like, and this is just me talking, Simon, and it seems like at this stage in the game, it's time for individuals like us that are trying to assist others in this operation. I feel it's time that we maybe drop the belief in the movie day by day by day by day, and start to help people and explain what's really going on. And yes, it's about discernment, the development of discernment, but it's also my belief that if you help people with that by saying, okay, you see how this situation happened? Well, this is what's really going on in the background. And I believe that assists people in their discernment development. So that's like that's kind of where I want to go right now, if you can help me out. What is your opinion about what I just said in regards to, should we still be believing the movie is running, or should we be kind of past that by now?
I think I will answer it, but I won't answer it in the way you want me to.
Thank you.
I would be in a better position to answer it on November the 6th, because the movie that you've discussed has a relevance to play until November the 6th. So that's the straight answer. Go on. No.
Even in regards to individuals that that are doing what we do. I mean, I'm not contracted. I'm not under NDA. I'm not being told we'd prefer if you follow this script. I mean, help me understand for me why. I mean, maybe you can. You might not be able to, but why is it that we want everybody to be following the movie and not really following what's behind the movie?
Because then you would undermine the whole principle of what it's about.
Mm-hmm. I see. I see.
Do you?
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
Okay.
You know, and you know what's interesting is when that came to light is the assassination
Right.
attempt. I should say attempt, because it absolutely does not behoove the movement of the good for anything to be considered staged. That would be bad for us. And I'm not saying it was, but I'm saying that digging into that and trying to show that it was would be more detrimental to what we're trying to do.
Well, there is one a very well-known person who's come out and said it was staged. Was it 107? Who was it? Oh, Phil Godlewski said it was staged.
Oh, I don't follow him. I did not know that.
No, he's come out and said it was staged.
Really?
Apparently, yeah. I haven't heard it, but someone I trust very much has told me that they listened to one of his podcasts, and he's been quite clear that he said it was a staged operation.
Interesting. In this movie, in this plan, let's just call it the plan. And like always, you may or may not be able to answer. Would you say that this is more a pre-planned performance, or would you say that we utilize
the second one, the one you're going on to now, where every day is different and opportunities show themselves, and the good guys have to take what they're given? There is an overall plan, but you cannot, even with the most advanced looking glass technology, you just can't, because humans are almost unpredictable. So what the white hats have had to do is to grab what they're given and very quickly, in a matter of minutes, come up with something which takes it on. Maybe not always good, but it's the second point that I interrupted you on. That is the way they're going. This is not a pre-written script. This is a plan from A to Z, but every day is dynamic and different.
The utilization of, let's say, looking glass technology and actual time traveling alterations of future events. How prevalent, if you can say, has that been?
Not anymore, because the damage to the fabric of space-time within our human time frame, within our operational sphere, has been quite severe, with all of the experiments that particularly the CIA, but not exclusively, undertook. And the Montauk project was one of the most damaging. So all sides appreciate that it's not a Hollywood film. You can't go back 1 minute before somebody did something, change it, and then come forward, and then the other side goes back 2 minutes beforehand. Those days you can't do that. But what the good guys have given the good guys on Earth is a quantum machine that has the capability to predict in a far greater way than any supercomputers currently on the planet can do. And so it's not so much looking into the future, it's looking at the likelihood of probabilities, which is almost the same thing, but it's more of a math thing, shall I put it like that. You know, the guy with a piece of chalk at the chalkboard saying after about 5 months of work, number 7 is the probable number. So what the good guys have got is something the bad guys haven't got, which allows them to outthink and therefore outmaneuver. However, this is only used in critical cases. We have a very sad case of a Brazilian turboprop aircraft with, I believe, 62 people killed. There were 3 sovereign guys to do with the RV, and 7 or so of their staff have all been taken out. This is what I mean, that the bad guys can place bombs, they have shooters, but they don't have technology beyond that. So we're still in a situation where a handful of people can cause an awful lot of damage. But in terms of the wider game, then the game is already over. Yes.
Yeah, that's you know, and a lot of times, Simon, I mean, that leads to what I'm always most concerned about, and you know, and it's the stability of the people. It's the removing, or should I say, relieving some of the fear, some of the worry, some of the pain that a lot of the broadcasters are still broadcasting, that we're in dire straits, that it could go either way. You know, and many believe these things. I think.
Nick, the problem is that a lot of those people are in a particular, they're on railroad tracks, and to get off it would be to completely change the whole way they are. And they have hooked in a large portion of the awake audience who are just living the fear ride. I mean, we have it in our organization where, you know, different, in the United States, for instance, different CC groups, of course, do their meetups, and there's always somebody who has listened to one of these and they want to talk about the doom and the gloom. The problem is that if you were to be more open, shall we say, there is the worry that a lot of people won't bother to vote. You see, if somebody said to us that Trump was going to win, no matter what happened, people would say, well, why would I vote? And so what we've got is an environment which is designed to encourage people to go out and vote. And that is why there is this room for a very negative story at the moment, because it is not in the interests of the people behind these stories to say to you, look, actually, Trump is 5 or 6% ahead in the national polls, and in the swing states, he's about 12% ahead. It's much more in there for them to say that it's 1%, 2% difference. So that is the greater political game that's playing out at the moment. And I guess that these people are doing what they're told. They're doing their job, but some people enjoy it too much. I will say that some people seem to thrive on fear and they enjoy it too much. And I'm not down that road at all.
Yeah, I mean, I totally comprehend the whole get out and vote situation. I think that many of the people that are in fear are beyond that. They're, you know, well, if we vote, they're just going to steal it anyway. They, as a whole, I believe the group still believes that the dark side has a great deal more power than they actually do. And the black swan, the gut punches, the false flags, and all of this, you know, people are still afraid to leave their house. They're afraid to do almost anything.
Sure.
And it's, you know, it's one of the causes of my personal greatest frustrations is that I don't like people to be in peril. Especially, Nick, Simon, it's the good people, the ones
I
that are
know.
part of this journey, that
I
have
know.
suffered,
Nick,
lost friends, lost jobs.
yeah, I know.
Those are the ones.
Well, we all have. Yeah, we all have. Nick, my answer to that, to all of those people dedicated to your show who are listening and nodding their head and quite rightly agreeing with what you've said, my answer is this: have the Georgia Guidestones been rebuilt since they were demolished? And the answer is no, they haven't. So that is the answer that I give. Because if the bad guys were in charge, they would have rebuilt. They didn't.
Yes. And personally, I've always had the feeling that there is no they anymore, other than, like you said. Yeah. I believe our last visit, you mentioned that a very few sealed indictments out of maybe 300,000 or 400,000 are still remaining. Most of the people that needed rounded up have been rounded up. The individuals that we see, many of them are central casting. And it's people can rest more easily than they currently are. I don't believe these are the people that will just say, "Oh, we're good, let's not vote." These are true patriots, true Americans, and true good people. So anyway, why is it that you are probably the only, well, to my knowledge, the only commentator that believes that we probably will have an election?
Why?
Why is that, Simon?
Because I have connections, obviously, with people that others don't have.
It's just, it's extraordinary. So in your opinion, and this isn't whether or not it's going to happen, in your opinion, how is it the best decision to, let's just say, for argument's sake, go against the wishes of all of the people that are awake? Let's say there's, I don't know, 1 billion. Why is it okay to go against their wishes to do something that, like, go through the regular election in order to maybe make it a little bit easier on the people that aren't awake? Explain, because I have an issue with that, as does everyone. Make me understand a little bit better. How come that's okay?
I can't make you understand. I can only do my best. Because the wishes of the people are only created on the information that they were given. I'll have to put that in another frame. If I take a person and I feed them with information, that person has a viewpoint. But the information they've received makes them or helps them to create that viewpoint. Why would I need to give them what they wanted from their wishes? Because the information they've received is not theirs anyway. The information they've given is information that they've been given. And they have created their viewpoint on that. But if the information they've received is not their own, it's not that they found it, they from a sovereign self found it, they've been given that, then to give them what they asked for would be like a child, perhaps, stamping its feet, wanting candy. And the parent says, well, I've got your teeth in the highest ideal, and I'm not going to give you that candy, even though it's your wish that I do so. There is a huge difference between those that run a country, run a world, and those that don't. Those that run it have knowledge and information that they probably have no intention of ever sharing, good or bad, simply because they believe that the people are not capable of understanding, or if they are capable of understanding, then the people at the top are not convinced that they would get the support of the vast group. So give an example. If the white hats were to say to the American people, Roswell was real, it really happened, you might think there's no big deal there. But the problem is that isn't where the questions end. The questions come on as to how long have we been with these creatures? What is the deal that's been made? Who were the people that made this deal? What about all the abductions? What about all the mutilations? So it's what we would call a Pandora's box. And until such time as humanity is not greedy, I don't think there's going to be a great deal of information shared in the short term. And I want to give an example. There's a really good truther site. It's called something like the Dina Chronicles, the Revaluation, the GCR, and they put out statements supposedly from people. And there was one statement supposedly from not JFK Jr., but from JFK, Robert, I think, and Julia Assange, the guy from WikiLeaks. So they were accrediting statements from him to the audience, which I know to be not true. But the problem was that it was all about the RV, and it was all about how much money you could make on the RV. So, for instance, a Zimbabwe 1 trillion note, it was supposedly, Julia Assange said, you get $100 trillion for one of those notes. Right? Now, what is happening here is that I believe that this huge group of awake and aware people, a minority of them, have become absolutely fixated on making money without really having to do anything to help the wider community. So I sit at home, I hold my Zim note or bond, as they like to call it, and I am going to get millions or billions of dollars. And all I have to do is sit at home and I'll have that, or I've got my Iraqi dinar. And this is a story that's been pushed for about 20 odd years, maybe longer. And for people who are very dollar fixated, it's something they want to believe in. And unfortunately, for the detriment of anything else, that's what they focus on. So I would say to you, Nick, that there are lots of lines running, lots of horses running off in different directions with different groups from the awake and the aware audience following it. There isn't one mass group now. There's all these different groups. And I think that there will be a reckoning where the message will be, well, you believe that. And it will be about believing false prophets. It will be about the money changes. And Jesus turned the tables over. It will be about all of these things that as a sovereign being, an individual should have had enough about them to see the trickery and go for it. Now, the wider question, which I skirted earlier, I'll have a go at answering, which is the human race is being fought over. It literally is. And it is very difficult for commentators like you to stand back dispassionately and say, why are people being led down a particular pathway that actually is going to cause more harm or potentially could more harm? Don't we think that people should be given the truth so that they can make their own decision? And I actually have always agreed with that. But the difficulty is that time and time again, when the mass group of people have been entrusted with something, in a large enough minority have derailed it and caused a problem. So what the white hats are doing is saying, until we've got the whole situation exactly where we want it, we cannot be open with the public as we'd like to be. So that's why I said to you, come back and speak to me on the 6th of November, because as we go into 2025 and the situation predominantly in the United States, fingers crossed, is the way we would like to see it, then I think we will find a relaxation and a change in direction so that people can begin to have the truth. But they need to be educated, Nick, and they need to be supported to take it on board and to say, what do I do with my life now? So it's an incredibly serious element.
I can feel all that. I can understand and make sense out of, I mean, all of that. So prior to ending, based on all of the information that we've talked about and what we've heard, are you able or willing to say, what should we expect prior to November the 4th? In regards to whatever you're able to I guess, release, so to speak.
Sure. Up until about 3 weeks ago, you asked me, and I didn't really choose to answer it directly. I said there was a 60-40 split chance, 60% that Trump would not come back before the election, and 40% chance he would. I have now reduced that 80% chance that he won't come back, 20% chance he will before the election. I have consistently for over 3 years said that Trump will fight the election. And so many people 2 years ago, 3 years ago, got really cross, really angry with me. For some reason, I wasn't a patriot and I wasn't this. But here we are 3 years later, and I proved right. Now, I don't normally do that. I don't normally pick a trumpet up and blow it, but I was so annoyed at people saying that I wasn't a patriot because I was telling them that Trump was going to have to fight the election in 2024/25, come back. And that, you know, I wasn't joining all the other big names and saying, don't worry, Trump's going to come before that. And I've said, as an ex-politician, as a person that does have connections with the highest in the land in America, it was always made clear to me that there was nothing to be gained by Trump coming back midterm. There was nothing to be gained. All that was to be gained was the millions of people in the United States and across the world who wanted an end to the pain and suffering and wanted Trump to come back and make it good for them. But that is to look at it from their own personal, individual point of view, not from people who run a country and frankly run the world. And so their viewpoint was far greater than individuals who want their life to be made better. They want their brother or their sister to realize that they were right. I was right and you were wrong. You vilified me, as you said, Nick. People lost their jobs. They want to be able to go back and prove that they were right. So they're feeling that from a personal standpoint, whereas people in the positions of authority don't allow themselves to have that effect. They look at it from a wider standpoint. And I've tried so many times to get through to the audience and say, if Trump came back any other way than an election, how could the United States of America lecture any other country on the planet? How could a country that professes to be a democracy, but the guy comes back before an election, doesn't matter whether he was tricked out of the election, because that would, you know, tell the world that it was a fake election in 2020. How could America tell any country in Africa or Europe what to do? Because they would just turn around and say, you can't lecture us. You're not a democracy. But people who are suffering throughout the world, but we're talking about American audience here, they don't see that standpoint. they're seeing it from their own personal point of view. And that is why, as I went back earlier, I talked about how individuals have a mindset or a toolkit of information, which is very much about them, about their world, their families, their friends, their communities. But it sort of stops perhaps at the borders of their state, perhaps at the borders of continental United States. They don't understand that America is the police officer of the world. And that is why these people who make these decisions do not come down onto Main Street or anywhere else, because they could begin, like your 3-star general, they could begin to take on the views or the feelings of the people, and then their commitment to their overall goal has been diluted. And that is the reality of the military. The military cannot afford to be deflected from its course at all. It must deliver the victory, not just for the people of the United States, but for the people of the world. Now, frankly, I know flag officers who don't give a damn whether people care about that or believe that or disagree or don't agree. They are committed to the Constitution and to the Republic, and they will do that job, even if they go to their deathbeds unsung heroes. That is what they're going to do. I hope that helps.
It does. It does. It's you know, sometimes playing the devil's advocate with you is always a losing battle, but I choose to do it. You know, I choose to bring topics that people truly want the answer to,
I get
rather than sit around and, you know, agree with all the amazing things that you know. You know, I chose not to. I chose not to really mention the RV because I know your precarious position. But I want to ask a couple of brief questions. I guess in closing, to your knowledge, are you saying that there will not be, and this may not be true
correct.
at all?
The answer is correct.
There will not be an RV similar to that of the revaluation of Kuwait.
That's correct. Sorry, I answered your question before you answered it. I apologize. That is what happened with Kuwait. It was a straightforward evaluation that didn't tell the people. And then there was 5 or 6 days, maybe longer, where it was in-house. And it was a straightforward mechanical RV. Everyone has got their eyes on Iraq, and you couldn't be more wrong. You are wasting your time watching Iraq. When this was all created more than 25 years ago, I don't know if it's a Pink Panther movie with Peter Sellers in it. Maybe I've got it wrong, but that was a big firework display and everyone was watching fireworks. And then the jewel thief went round and stole everyone's jewels. Maybe that's just another film. But everyone's staring and watching Iraq while it's all happening around them. And if I had $1 for every time the back screens were blinking, or every time they were in grayscale, or every time they were in solid, I would be a multi-millionaire. The reality is, don't waste your time looking at Iraq. The good guys set that up as a complete sideshow to take everyone's attention on it. And they also set up people without their knowing as their mouthpiece, who are fed information. I'm not going to mention who they are. They are fed information, and they genuinely believe the information they're receiving, and they put it out as truth. And I would say to anybody who is watching your show and is deeply interested in the RV, the following. Monday to Friday, there's news comes out. Saturday and Sunday, nothing comes out. Why is that? During the wars, real wars, the war didn't stop on Saturday or Sunday. The war went on. In fact, it was in the First World War where the Brits and the Germans played a game of football and then went and killed each other. Just, humans are mad. But my point is that there is a desk somewhere that produces information Monday to Friday, and then that guy goes home. He goes home on Saturday and Sunday, and there's no more information. He comes back on Monday and starts the information out again. Once you understand that, you realize that everything that the public hear is not real. Everything that you hear or you're meant to hear through a public channel is not real. Why on earth would the good guys put out true information for the bad guys to pick that up? Everything that is put out is not real. And it's the art of war. The information that is real is passed to people who don't talk about it. Because if you talk about it, you're giving the enemy the opportunity, and then you are out of the program, my friend. So anybody talking, I noticed that all the people doing the RV talk don't have a single NDA. That's your answer. They don't have that connection. They have somebody who's befriended them at a party or somewhere and is feeding them information. And the RV commentator believes this person is a huge whale or a military man or intel. Have those people ever met them? If they have met them, how do they know that the person messaging them is that individual concerned? When this RV happens, nobody will know it happens because no one is meant to know. So people like to think they know it. They know it. They've got the information. They know it. But you are being fed information to take you down a particular route because the bad guys are also on that route. And there are huge financial people who have on 3 occasions, because they believe the RV is about to happen, gone to the stock market and done things. So in order to throw the bad guys off, information is put out and the good guys watch what happens with the stocks. So it is a war without a bullet being fired. Forget Iraq. Don't waste your time looking at it. It's the wrong place to look. I'm probably getting in trouble for that, but I have to say that.
Well, I don't follow all of it terribly close, but I know a lot of people do. And it feels like on one hand, Simon, a lot of this is all psyop. A lot of it is not true. It's all bullshit. It's not true. It's fake. But you're also saying that you're involved and there is an RV and there will be. And I guess, and I will admit that I'm a semi-novice when it comes to this piece. I guess what I'm not understanding is,
okay, I'll answer it. Okay.
What is it? What,
yeah, yeah. Sorry, I got your question before you finished.
Yeah, I know you're good at that.
I can't help it. It's the way I'm made. So
yeah,
there is an RV, but not in the way that people have been talked about for 25 years. That was all a huge psyops. The RV will literally make people financially better off, but it will not make them multi-millionaires. What will happen is the tax will be reduced or gone away. People will have money put into their accounts, and no longer should anyone be fearful of not being able to have a roof over their head, or to be able to send their kids to college, or to have enough food, or to put enough gas in the tank of their automobile. That is what's coming, not a load of people sitting around clutching their dinar notes waiting to become multi-millionaires. That is not what the RV is about. The RV is about a combination of education and projects, humanitarian projects from the top end to the bottom end that will empower people, improve their health, improve their life, and give them an opportunity to understand what being human is really about. Now, I was chatting to someone from the RV only today on the phone, and I said to that person that having all the money in the world is not enough. You need the governments on board. You cannot be doing a $10 billion project and somebody from the local government the governor's office turns up and says, well, that's a local law you've just broken there. So the government of the world has to be on board. They have to support it. And why wouldn't they? They're not paying for it. If you're going to put a highway from one state, I'm not giving anything away here. If you put a highway from one state up 7 or 8 states, and you go to each governor and you say, by the way, you don't have to pay for any of this, and you go to the federal government, you say, you're not paying for this, of course they want it. And why would they get in the way of it? In the same way as if you build hospitals or you build anything, and they're not paying for it, but the important thing is they don't have a say in it. He who doesn't pay any money doesn't have the right to have a say in it. So what the good guys are doing with the RV is they're going to put projects throughout the world where the governments can rubber stamp it. By all means, yes, please come and cut the ribbon and let's all have a drink of champagne. It's you're not going to dictate to us what we can and can't do. And so it is a relationship between the new beginning and the old world. And it is not about individuals sitting at home dreaming of becoming super rich. Because no disrespect to most people, but they have no idea how to put a project in. With my own organization, with Connecting Consciousness, we know that we will have to support individuals to work up their projects. What to me was most important and is most important is in my organization, we have people who are spiritually clear, and they will be what we call an originator. So they have an idea for a project, they need it funded. But they're not an accountant, they're not an architect, they're not into construction, they don't understand any of that. So they need the help to put that together in the plan and to deliver that. But they have the ability to be spiritual and to make spiritual decisions, such as, hey, listen, you can't pay the janitor that low wage. That janitor needs a proper wage, or you can't do this. That's the role they've got, not the management of how many tons of cement or bricks are required. And so you don't get that just by giving someone a dinar note, giving them $1 billion, and they walk into a so-called redemption center and say, give me my $1 billion, I've got a project. It's just not, it's there. Right. I know you want to close this, but I want to bring this back to
no, I'm fine. I'm fine.
I want to bring this back to Christianity because it's an example. We've got to understand that many people in this running this show believe in God. They're not solely Christians, but they do all believe in God. And there's one story in the Old Testament, and I've used it before, but forgive me, audience, if you've heard it. But I don't know if it was David or someone was going to fight the battle. The Israelites needed to build an army. So they wanted to find who the leaders were. Now, they could have given everyone a dinar note and sat them down in their armchairs and said, come into a redemption center and we'll make you a leader. No, it didn't do that. It took them all on a march through Sinai. So they were half dead from thirst, and took them to an oasis. And it's in the Old Testament, and said to them, you're in enemy territory. We could be attacked at any moment. But here's the oasis you can drink. And what he did was he put guys all along to watch. And anybody who was just doing this, they were going to be a soldier. But anyone who was drinking and looking around for the enemy, that was a leader. Because even though that person was desperately dehydrated, their commitment was such that they looked around. And if we understand how religion works, that is permeating through this whole operation that we have. They're not just Christians, there are Jews, there are Muslims. Anyone who believes in God has a role in this, what we're doing. And so take your eyes off Iraq. It is not about Iraq. It is about you, yourself, the sovereignty, and the role that you can play when the opportunity comes to you. Okay.
That's understandable. I understand. So in this entire process, I mean, would you And I think I know the answer, but I want to hear, and I think people would like to hear from you. This, let's just call it the global currency reset, QFS, RV ensemble, this process that we are close to going through. It is a spiritual process. Does it involve spiritual entities? Does it involve possible cosmic entities? Is it much greater than 99% of the people are sort of thinking it is, where it's just a monetary transfer? You go in, exchange this, get that. I've always, and I could be wrong, I've always seen it as a much greater operation, where if your heart is where it belongs and your intentions are where they belong, you're not going to be left holding the bag. You're not going to be left out in the cold. You're not going to be like, oh, sorry, screw you. Too bad, nothing. I know it's a difficult question because I'm not asking it very well.
Not difficult.
But what can you tell me with that?
It's not difficult at all, and you're asking it very well. I can't think of another country other than America that is so connected to making money. And the historical reason for that is understood, because in the United States, if you don't make money, you're nothing. That's how you judge.
Yeah.
How much money do you make? What job do you do? What influence do you do? And also, how do you pay your insurance? So unfortunately, in my opinion, the system in America is too top heavy like that. It's too much pressure on people to push aside their spirituality because they've got to make bucks. So what's going to happen is that is going to ease off. If you, I'm not going to say you're a millionaire, but if you're comfortable, if you can send your kids to university, if you can, and you can afford to live and have a holiday, proper holiday, and you're not worried, then you should move away from that desperate, I've got to survive, to I want to take time out and find out who I am. I want to take time out and find what my relationship, not just with the world, but with the universe actually is. And when you've got people living every minute of every day, scraping dollars together, they haven't got the time to discover who the hell they are. But if you take that pressure off them and you give them a controlled environment, if I took a person and threw them into a barrel with $1 million, they'd lose their mind. And I say lose their mind. I'm going to buy this car. I'm going to buy it. We want people to think about those around them. And you don't do it by giving people millions of dollars, because they just do what they would do is run into the corner and count it like that. That's not what we want. So we can't undo years and years of programming in just a few short years. So it is going to be a better world for those who want to live it. And for those who don't, you will find yourselves in an ever decreasing island with the tide coming in on you, because the good guys have won this, but unfortunately the bad guys can still, hit out. Right, I'm going to say we've had enough now. Nick, God bless to you. God bless to America. I mean it. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you and your audience. And I know you play the devil's advocate, because I know you're a very, very, when I say intelligent, I don't mean book read, although you might be, but you are very worldly wise, very knowledgeable. But in order to get the sort of answers that your audience want, you're one of the few guys with me anyway that does it like that. Otherwise, you just get the same old platitudes, don't you? So well done for doing that. I love coming on the show. Your audience is great. You're a good guy. And maybe, after November the 6th, we can do something else.
That would be fantastic, my friend. Thank you again. I will see you in a week with Alex Collier
that's the round table. Do your audience even know about that? Have you advertised it?
Well, the answer would be no, but I know that it's because the whole Dylan scenario. I don't have the tech here. It's all at his shop. But Laura is, Alex is, and trust me, it will get far and wide. It will. I'm not worried about that.
19th of September. 19th? I beg your pardon.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be the 19th.
19th of August.
Yeah, well, August. Yeah, August. This
God,
month.
I actually thought I've got plenty of time. Actually, I haven't got plenty of time. It is the 19th of August. It's 1 week away. So
Yeah.
we've got the round table with Laura Eisen, got Alex, got yourself. Anyone else you're dragging on?
Just us four. Four is
Okay.
plenty.
So that should be lovely. And look forward to that. But no questions about the 6th of November.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Well, gotcha. All right, my friend.
Take care.
Pleasure. Say hello to Becky and Carol and all the beautiful people. And we will talk to you very soon.
Okay. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.